What's going on, guys? If you're new to my channel, thanks for clicking on this video. And if you're already subscribed and you've seen my other videos, you'll know that I'm a huge fanatic when it comes to checking your lawn's pH level, which is why I picked up this really cool little gadget recently, about a few weeks ago. So typically in the spring, I like to take some soil samples and use one of those mail-in kits to get a full analysis. But in the fall, I'll just use one of those homeowner kits that you can buy anywhere to test your soil's pH. The problem I had this year is the little activator capsules for my kit were expired. They kind of exploded. And I went online to see if I can find some replacements, and I didn't have a whole lot of luck. So I figured I would just go out and buy a new pH test kit. To my surprise, I saw this little gadget on the shelf for about 10 bucks, and I was completely skeptical that something that I could probe into the ground would give me an accurate reading for my pH. I decided to give it a shot. At worst case scenario, I could always return it. Now this soil probe will actually measure three things: sunlight, moisture, and pH. Now, I bought it to measure my lawn's pH level, but the moisture and the sunlight thing can also be pretty useful in their own scenarios. To my surprise, when I got home and tried this thing, I found it to be pretty accurate. What I really liked about this was the fact that I could randomly just go around to different spots in my yard and take samples of my soil's pH without physically having to remove any dirt and mix it with any of those capsules into distilled water. So if you've got certain areas that seem problematic over other ones, it's very easy to distinguish, where you have to do some treatments. Sometimes I would actually just do a generic pH test in the fall, which means I would take samples from a bunch of different areas, combine it, and then just do a pH test on that one and treat it as a whole. Now what that does is not give you a very accurate reading if you're having areas that have certain pH levels that are different than other ones. So this was really cool because you can get very detailed and specific on certain areas in your yard. So this thing's rather simple to use, has no batteries. Basically you just flip the switch to whatever type of reading you're looking for. You stick it in the ground, probably a minimum of 4 or 5 inches if you can, as deep as you can, obviously. One tip though is these probes are made out of copper and aluminum, it looks like, and which are soft metals. So if you feel any resistance, like you're going to be hitting like a rock or something, you're going to want to stop and just move it over. The last thing you want to do is kind of wreck these probes by jamming into some kind of rock in the ground. Another tip that I found by doing some research is, in order to get an accurate pH reading, your soil actually has to have a certain amount of moisture to it. Basically, if your moisture reading is not in the green zone with the needle here, I don't think you're going to get a very accurate reading with your pH. Originally, when I got home and I tried this, I stuck it in the ground, and I wasn't getting any reading at all. So right away I thought I had a dud. So I did a little bit of research, and come to find out, it is important that your soil is moist. So basically, if you have an irrigation system or something, you run it in the morning, you can test it that same day. That way, the ground moisture or the soil moisture will sort of react with the probes as they're going into the ground. Because the dry soil basically does nothing as far as reacting with the metal here that you're putting in. So not only is the pH part of this thing very helpful to me, I also found that the moisture part was pretty cool. Basically, if you run your irrigation system, you can stick this in the ground, and you can determine whether or not your irrigation system is actually doing its job and getting that moisture deep into the soil. As far as the sunlight meter, I think that's probably more useful for maybe a garden or some indoor plants. This thing's actually really great for people that have a lot of indoor plants and they want to check the pH or the moisture and the sunlight, because some plants require sunlight or not so much. This thing gives a lot of different readings and will help determine whether or not you've got things located in the right areas. So if you're really into monitoring your lawn's pH and moisture level, and you're tired of taking physical samples and mixing it with those little catalyst capsules, I highly recommend you spend $10 and get this really cool little gadget. As far as I'm concerned, this is the best 10 bucks I've spent on my lawn so far this year. Thanks for watching, guys.